All right. I think we've got most of our guests back inside. I hope you enjoyed the breakout sessions. We are actually going to do something a little bit different for this next part. So, yes, it requires audience participation. You knew that was going to happen today. And as Liz said, we don't want to do any cold calling or any voluntold. So please participate. Um, I actually did go around during the sessions to see how the discussions were going, to see what everybody was sort of like leaning into. And for those who didn't get a chance to maybe jump around to the rooms, we actually had four incredible discussions. We had Igniting Change with Lily, Heather, Ligna, Laura, and Julie. We had MIT Women in Space, incredible, with Marielle, Barbara, Katie, Christine, and Janelle. We also had a session on pay equity with Hannah, Audrey, Kim, Kristen, and Deborah. And then our fourth group was Realizing Your Superpower. And by the way, that room was overflowing. So we're definitely going to have to share about that. And that was led by Monica and Nikki. So I think what we'll do just for the next 15 minutes is perhaps like a show of hands, just to understand where everybody was, what room they were in, and then we can get a couple of maybe key takeaways, what you learned, what maybe surprised you, and really what would you like to share with the woman who's sitting next to you that didn't join that session. So let's start with igniting change. Maybe just a show of hands. Who was in that discussion this afternoon? Okay, we see some hands back there in the middle. Perfect. All right, who's interested in igniting change? All of us. All right, so maybe we can pass the mic around. We've got three runners who are going to actually do a little bit of mic running for us. So perhaps maybe in the back, I think there was a hand there. Somebody had joined. Thank you. Please introduce yourself, your name, your class. Love to know who you are.
Okay. I'm Carol Willing. I'm Sloan of 89 and live in the San Diego area. And the panelists that were at the uh, session were absolutely fantastic. And they had a wide range of, advocacy, grant making, policy making, and all areas of climate change as well as like hunger or housing. And it was just really inspiring to hear the work that everybody was doing and the importance of the work. And there was a really cool startup that
Great.
one of the speakers had about using biological gases to run cars, and very inspiring.
Thank you for sharing. Okay. I think there was another hand in the back as well. If you'd like to share something you learned, something that was interesting, or something to share with the women next to you. It's okay. We have plenty more to talk about. All right, well, let's jump into the next session and we can always come back. So, I saw the panel on MIT Women in Space. We had some of our guests here in person and some were on Zoom, which was incredible. And I actually met Janelle this morning. So she's the woman who just came in from Tokyo. So thank you, Janelle. So maybe a raise of hands. Who was in that session with MIT Women in Space? Oh, wow, look at the crowd. Great, great. So maybe if you'd like to share insight, maybe what's fascinating you with this topic, why you jumped into that meeting. Or maybe Janelle would like to share. I know she's here. Okay, we've got a couple hands here.
So I'm Laura Anderson, Sloan, 2008. And I am not in the space industry, but being a longtime sci-fi fan, I thought I would go and see what was happening in the world of space. And indeed, I was not disappointed. We discussed everything from hidden figures to how the space industry has changed, how you're seeing more and more women going up, and how despite some of the not such enthusiastic support of DEI initiatives, that we still see a bright future going forward for all of us. It was very inspiring to see what all the women have accomplished, and they brought a lot of hope to the discussion in terms of, what we can all do together going forward globally. And it was a great meeting.
Thank you for sharing that. And yes, I think that's a great point too around what's just sort of happening, the movements that are happening and the changes, unfortunately, which we have to be aware of, which is clearly also impacting who's in space. All right, we've got another comment there.
Yeah, just hi, Megan Smith, 86 and 88, Mecky. I just would add that it was pretty clear that MIT women are leading at the forefront too. Just to note, it was an amazing range, as you said, of conversations, and all of the people on the panel were in the front of the industry, including our astronaut Katie Coleman, who zoomed in from I think the New Orleans book fair, where her new book, Sharing Space, is being featured. But I think that's one of the things that was clear about MIT women was just being in the front. And what was cool was the combination of not only some folks who had come through ROTC and some of the military leadership, new new people working on startups, folks who had come through academic paths, folks who are like at all levels, government, policy, technology, et cetera. So super cool panel. Thanks for the people who spoke.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's another point to maybe just underscore is that not only from the speakers, but this room, the women, engineering, science, technology, health, I mean, we literally span all of the different sectors that are hugely important. And everyone here has actually, been a part of some wave of movement to get to where we are, or is really pushing ahead with just the efforts to get, women's advancement and also just our representation. So thank you all for that. Anybody else want to comment on the session with MIT Women in Space? Got a hand in the back?
Thanks. So I moderated that panel, and I want to thank all my speakers who were fabulous. But I also wanted to echo the thing I said at the very end of that panel to everybody in this room, which is that, there's increasingly, stuff that we do on Earth that is relevant to space and stuff that we do in space that's relevant to Earth. We need all of the talent to solve the problems that we have, both on Earth and in space. And don't think that just because you are doing biomedicine or you're doing AI or you're doing something else related to your writing poetry, whatever it is, we need you engaged in the space business and in the exploration business. So
Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that. And I think we had another hand back there and another in the front. Here in the purple.
Yeah, Ann Westerheim, class of 86 and PhD 92, and I just love the enthusiasm in the Women in Space session and the sense of mission, and I walked away just really excited about it. And I guess the other thing, I didn't realize what a big problem the debris in space is, and that's another big problem that has to be solved.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Okay, maybe one more comment because we had so many hands up for that session. There was actually a point that one of my peers shared around the sense of community building in space, which is not something that you might think of immediately, but I feel is very relevant, especially because all of you have made this a priority to be here today. Would anybody like to comment on that? Or I can call my dear friend Chelsea, who's here in the front. All right, Chelsea, I think it's going to be you. She's here in the front table.
Hi, Chelsea Borchers, Sloan 2022, Adela's classmate, hence the voluntold maybe. I think what I walked away with is the idea that in space everyone is equal, and we all have a right to be there, and that space is a place to build community and not tear apart relationships. So kind of echoing that idea of DEI, which yeah, I don't know if I can say that word right now. Here I can. Okay, great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that we need space in order to have a future for Earth. Yeah. Good.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. I will get her a free glass of wine afterwards. All right, so we had two other groups, and these were really packed rooms. So I want to make sure that we get there in the next couple minutes. So pay equity. When I jumped into that room, I think we were talking about not only what's happening with pay equity and equality now, but also what's happened sort of like generationally. And I think that was a brilliant topic because we have folks in this room from all backgrounds and all sort of timelines. Would love to see a raise of hands. Who was in the pay equity session? Okay, we've got some folks in the back and the front. Would anybody like to share and sort of elaborate on maybe what they're seeing today, like what's happening in the workforce? What is something that we can perhaps focus on for ourselves, because that is certainly top of mind. Got a hand in the front?
Hi, Melissa Marsh, course 4, 2004. I was hesitant to go. I'm like, oh gosh, do we have to talk about this? We've been working on it for a century. But I went
Yes.
and I learned. And some of the things that I really appreciated were some myth busting around negotiation. Women do negotiate. Yay! We just negotiate for different things.
Yeah.
We negotiate for flexibility. We are badass at negotiating for others. And then I also really heard some of the cool things that MIT has been doing in order to contribute to the data around this topic. And then finally, that the number one most important thing is building awareness, that people, all people, know what to ask for and what matters to them. And that the more we know and the more we ask questions in the process of getting and advancing our career, the more well compensated we'll be, and we'll have more power to do other things. So thank you to all of the folks who attended that and to our fabulous panelists who made it happen.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love all those nuggets. Maybe one more person who wants to comment on that panel before we jump into the last one. Right there.
Hi, Agnesa Gino, Sloan, EMBA 18 is my table here. I joined the session. Normally in the past, when I've gone to these kind of sessions, it was to learn something about how I can negotiate for myself. But this time it was because I am in charge of HR for my company, and I was going at it from the other perspective. And we talked about we can ask for things, we can bend the rules, or we can shape. And I think most of the women, if not all of us in this room, can shape the future for other women. And I think that's just a very important message that I took away, because we can certainly advocate for ourselves, but I think it's more powerful when we do it for all other women. So.
Thank you. Yes. And finally, to the probably most crowded room, realizing your superpower. Raise a hand. So who was in that room? Okay, we have to hear from you. So maybe hand in the back who'd like to share. We've got just another minute or two.
Hello, everyone. I am Wendy Maldonado, Sloan MBA 2001, class of 2001. Give it up! Woo! We are always very rowdy at the women's conference. This is a really powerful session led by Monica and Nikki. And what I thought was so remarkable about it was that this was all about creating a safe space for an incredibly diverse group of women. And it became incredibly vulnerable, but it wasn't soft in a mushy way. It was soft in a really strong and powerful way. And what I came away with was just this reassurance that we didn't have to fit in, right? That it was okay to be exactly who we are in this space, in this time, in this moment. And that is our greatest strength. You don't have to contort yourself to be someone else's idea of what you should be, that you are perfect as you are in this moment. And so you are enough, and that is all. That's all you need to be. And your power is just in being exactly who you are. And you don't have to apologize for anything. You don't have to be somebody else's expectation. You are enough.
Ooh, hard to follow up that one. But there are too many hands. We've got to take one more person. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your energy. Yes, in the back.
Hello, my name is Diane Rigos, and I'm actually PhD 85, so I'm not Sloan. But what I realized,
That's okay.
I do have an MBA, but it's not from MIT.
We
But
forgive you.
what I realized is that this is a wonderful, the superpower was that we were all there together and we made each other stronger in the space. And I realized also at the end that women from Sloan don't even know what AMITA is. So AMITA is the Association of MIT Alumni. I'm the membership person there. We have regular virtual events, you can come to our safe spaces and recreate this wonderful room where we had the superpower. So look
Yes.
out for our events and recreate the safe space because
Oh, I love that.
it was amazing.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, please look up Amida. Please reach out if you're curious. And I totally agree. I think there's so much more of this conversation that's happening. So we're going to transition. We have a fantastic last discussion with Natalie and Linda. So it is my pleasure to introduce Natalie. Natalie Lorenz Anderson, 84, whom we heard from earlier. Natalie actually began her one-year term as president of the MIT Alumni Association last July, but her commitment to MIT and with MIT spans decades. Since earning her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, impressive, she has been a dedicated and engaged alumna, taking on volunteer roles, aiding in recruitment efforts, and fostering collaborations between MIT and the various industries. In her current role as Vice President of Operations and Special Projects at 247 Solar, actually an MIT spinoff, Natalie is helping to pioneer the future of concentrated solar power. We definitely need that. This also follows a 33-year career in cybersecurity at Booz Allen Hamilton, where she helped shape the industry. And for those of you who don't know that, that's incredible. So amazing work. Thank you so much for being here with us. Round of applause for Natalie. Natalie is also going to have a discussion up here in a moment with Linda Hendry, SM05, to the stage. And Linda is actually the co-owner and CEO of the Boston Globe Media, for those of you who aren't aware. Amazing, Linda. She's actually been overseeing an influential 153-year-old multimedia company. Please let that sink in, okay? And by the way, the first woman to be at MIT was also around that same time. So there's a fun fact for you. She's also part of the Boston Globe, Boston.com, Boston Magazine, Harvard Bookstore, we're not mad about that, STAT, and a national life sciences publication. But that's just one of the many spaces where Linda has made an impact. She's deeply involved in the sports world as partner in Fenway Sports Group, which stewards teams across the Premier League, MLB, NHL, NASCAR, tomorrow, golf, and more, including, of course, our favorite, the Boston Red Sox. Beyond media and sports, Linda is actually an Emmy award-winning television and documentary producer. How do you sleep? And a children's book author, and fun fact, a Guinness World Record holder. I don't know if we'll hear more about that today, but I'm very fascinated. A lifetime learner, Linda holds degrees from Babson and Harvard, but at MIT, she pursued a unique combination of course 4, 11, and 15 in real estate development. And she actually credits that to being a degree that has changed her life. Her passion for innovation and community building extends to her role as a leader, trustee, advisor to numerous nonprofits, including the Engine right here at MIT, where she has been on the board since the launch in 2016. Thank you so much for that. We are so lucky to have her here with us. Please join me in welcoming Linda and Natalie to the stage.
Hello, everybody.
So great.
Incredible day, huh?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's so wonderful to be here. And I have my 14-year-old daughter is going to be sneaking in. My husband is away with my son. This is babysitting. So thank you for welcoming her.
It's funny how we say babysitting when our husbands watch our kids. No.
Oh, no. He has my son. He has my son. I have her.
I'm
And so
teasing.
this is her Friday.
Wonderful. Can't wait to see her here. So thank you for being here. I am lucky that I got to see you in this chair when you did the Mythic launch. I was actually building a piece of deck furniture, though. So I was doing my MIT thing by building something while listening to you and Min-Jin Lee. So for those who missed it, it's still online. She interviewed Min-Jin Lee, the author of Pachinko, Free Food for Millionaires and also some other books that are out, and it was unbelievably great.
Oh,
So
it's incredible.
I'm thrilled to be able to be on the opposite side of the stage
Thank
today
you.
with you to let us learn more about you, because we didn't get to know very much that day. And so thank you for being here and letting us get to know you better now as an MIT alum and with all the fabulous things that you're doing. So, I mean, we have to start with the Guinness World Record, of course, since it was mentioned. Tell us more about that.
So I really believe in sort of trying to make myself interesting to myself. So I'll just sort of come up with random challenges. But for this one, Fenway Park was built in 1912. And in 2012, we were planning this great celebration. And I went through the Guinness Book of Records, which I had done before. It has sort of been one of my goals, is to do a Guinness World Record. And I found one that we could achieve to mark that occasion, which was the largest toast in a single venue. And so producing this was incredible, because we got we had this sort of whole celebration going, and we were able to get Welch's sparkling grape juice to every seat throughout the whole auditorium. And we had this sort of big moment. We gave the microphone to Kevin Millar and Pedro Martinez, and they sort of just jumped on the dugout and impromptu, and we did it, and we got a giant photograph. And so it still stands, the largest toast in a single venue. So I share this with about 30,000 other people. But
That's fantastic. How fun, too.
it was very fun.
That's amazing. What a logistics nightmare, right? That must have been amazing.
It was fun.
Oh, my goodness. So we also heard in the introduction of you about your master's degree, and it sounds really intriguing, the 3 courses together. It's something that, as we look ahead at MIT's future, cross-disciplinary, is a more and more important topic. How has that changed your life and your career trajectory?
So the Center for Real Estate, which is 4, 11, and 15, is just, for me, it was an extraordinary experience. I grew up in an immigrant family where the kids all work at the family business, and it was real estate. And I knew that in my bones that, I really loved cities, and that the built environment to me was part of it. And I wanted to do this program, and I was just talking to an incredible admissions officer who gets thousands and thousands of applications, and this was the one program I wanted to go to, was the program at MIT. And I thought I was a bit young, and so I just let them know I was going to keep applying until they accepted me. And I wore them down, and they accepted me. And what changed for me at MIT is that I had a lot of experience within real estate, all different aspects, from residential to commercial to industrial, and development, and sort of all different parts in between. And I thought that I really understood it. And when I got here, I learned to think beyond the individual building and into how it works with a city, with the integration of urban design and urban planning and the architecture and the business behind it. And so it just expanded the depth of my thinking and understanding of what makes a city work. And while I was here at MIT, I had a lot of fun. And I just sort of embraced that fire hose and just swam in it. And I went to Peru. I spent the J term in South America, and I studied informal housing in Peru. And so we went to the barrios around Lima and just sort of understood the informal housing and how people sort of made their lives and homes, and sort of what it worked. And we interviewed people throughout the neighborhoods, and just sort of my understanding of all different kinds of cities. I got scuba certified in the MIT pool, and did my scuba test in Revere Beach, and it was freezing. But I'm a lifelong scuba diver, and my children are scuba divers as well. And so there were just sort of all of these things. But really, MIT was a profound experience for me, and I'm so, so grateful that I had the opportunity to go.
Your scuba story reminds me, when I got certified, it was in a quarry in Delaware.
Oh,
and there was a thermocline, so you're familiar since you said it was very cold. I could hardly breathe through the regulator because it was so cold. We were just shivering. So then from now on, I only do nice dives in warm water. I don't know about you.
It's just lovely.
It's great that your kids are in it too.
They are, and I have. I just got wrapped by jellyfish last
Oh,
week,
no.
actually, in Costa Rica. But it was great. And
Yeah.
the children are.
You mean
and
the
it's
diving.
fun. The diving is great, and it's again, I had that opportunity at MIT. Is my. Do you want me to turn this off? Okay. Great.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think your voice, it wasn't picking up.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So, you mentioned your experience was great because you had other things besides your academics at MIT. And some of us, we take a while to get reconnected to MIT after we graduate. Some of us stay connected, and some of us have great experiences on campus, some don't. Why is it important to you now? I mean, you've done a lot according to the bio that we heard, and I know a little bit more as well. You're involved with so many things with MIT, Hub Week, and the engine that we just heard about as well, and of course the Mythic launch. What has that meant to you to stay connected to MIT, both personally and professionally?
So I was talking about how I really deepen my understanding of cities and how cities work. And I think that, and I am certainly biased, but I think that MIT is a truly special and unique place, and it needs to work and it needs to thrive. And all of our involvement, sort of what I'm sure, I talked about how it changed my life. I'm sure so many of you in this room have that same story where it just sort of gave you this opportunity, this environment, it nurtured this sort of new understanding. And I know that so many of the people in this room are just doing kick-ass things. And a lot of that came from the people that you met and you worked with and what you learned and what you were challenged to do while at MIT. And what I get to see at, for example, the engine at MIT is just awesome. So for those that don't know, it's this incredible thing, and every university around the country is coming to visit and trying to copy what they've done here. But it basically it takes the understanding that hard tech does not work in the sort of standard venture capital market because it takes longer. It's a huge amount of investment. And what MIT is doing is creating this space. It's just sort of, there's a fund and there's a startup accelerator where these companies that need high tech space and more time and more space to develop their idea from MIT and from other colleges are given that chance and that nurturing. And these companies are building the future, just like so many of you are. Like the nuclear fusion company, Commonwealth Fusion, is out of there. This concrete company that's building more sustainable concrete that's going to reduce carbon emissions across the globe is out of there. And just sort of all of these incredible world-changing ideas that come from an institution like this that's pushing people to think sort of on the edge of what's possible is happening there. So I view MIT as a national and global treasure. And I think that for me, I'm honored that I'm able to be any part of it.
It sounds like something you really look forward to.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of joy out of it.
So much joy and inspiration and just sort of, and again, going back to, excuse me, my love of cities is that with the impact of something like MIT and the engine is one of those very, very rare pebble in the pond moments where there are just all of these rings of impact in terms of the companies, the jobs that are created, and then the products themselves and the impact that those have. And so I think that MIT is just an extraordinary place. I'm fortunate that I've been to a bunch of schools and they all have their special place in my heart. But within the city of Boston, and we call Cambridge Boston, within the city of Boston and around the world, the impact of MIT is just really extraordinary. So the fact that you guys are all here together and staying part of that community is just really, really wonderful thing.
Today we had a session, and I don't know if we did a debrief on it, but I was in the room when we did the entrepreneurship session, and we heard about a tool called Orbit that is being made available to people who have attended the conference today. And I view it as your AI co-pilot in helping you build your business case and think about how, as an entrepreneur, to build it. And what you talked about with the engine, and you're on the board, correct? Yeah. What you talked about is a critical thing for companies. Companies don't always understand sort of where's their market, how do you think about pursuing it, and all of that. So for anybody who missed that session, because there were 3 other sessions going on at the same time, I urge you to check in, after this and just find out more about it. It seems like an incredible tool. I'm personally interested for our company to dive into it as well.
Great.
And if you haven't yet been exposed, I would love to see how that connects in with what you're doing.
Great, I'd love to.
Yeah. So, you've mentioned your upbringing kind of it sounds like in the real estate area or family business you mentioned. So I'm curious, as we kind of think about running businesses, and you've been involved in so many interesting and different ones, how do you approach, well, let me start by saying, again, today we heard at the lunchtime speaker, and some of the breakouts have talked about the workforce of the future. How are we going to manage them? How is AI helping or not helping? And so how do you think as a leader about challenges of leading your teams, turning the obstacles into opportunities? What are some of the things that you think about?
So I work, the majority of my energy is at Boston Globe Media. So I feel like I have all of the battle scars to understand what it is like to be part of an organization that's going through this incredible change. And so your question is, how do you
deal with obstacles that come? I mean, every organization has obstacles, and what is your thought about the guiding your teams to think about obstacles as an opportunity? If that's something that you've dealt with.
Sure. So I joined Boston Globe Media in 2013, and it was, we knew it was going to be hard, and it was actually harder than that. It was hemorrhaging cash. The business model was broken. The the morale in the building was bleak in terms of what it was, and I had this sort of really deep commitment and passion. And I talked about my understanding of cities. My understanding of a city was, as evolved beyond the built environment, the real estate aspect of it, into one of the things that I think makes a city function is a strong, independent, well-resourced newsroom at its core. And if that newsroom is there, then every institution is held to be more accountable, because they don't want their emails to be on our front page. And so it's also, we hold government accountable. There's all of this data showing that more people run for office, more people vote in elections. There's just greater participation when there is that strong newsroom. And so for wherever you live, I think one of the greatest civic things you can do is to subscribe to your local newspaper, because they're doing so much to make your city and your community thrive. And so in terms of leading the organization through that, being part of that leadership group, it took a very clear strategy that was communicated very clearly, and a lot of very hard decisions, and a lot of continued investment. But getting the right people, getting that right leadership team on board with the message, and everybody sort of going in the same direction, was really the critical part. And it took us a little while to get that team there. And if you're doing a massive change with an existing team, especially at a legacy institution, you have people with an expertise for an organization that you're trying to move away from. And so to do that real change in a number of organizations that I've been involved in, you really need people that are sort of really in line with that new vision of where that organization is going.
Sometimes you have to maybe start with other people too, unfortunately. But, as you think about the future, and first of all, I'm happy that you mentioned the local news and the local newsrooms, sources. I think that is a critical future need for us. And I do see in a lot of our local communities that's declining, unfortunately. So I love your admonition to everybody to get out there and support the local news organizations. I've realized when you said that my local paper is not arriving in my mailbox anymore. So I need to go check and see why. So we talked a little bit today about the workforce and the role of AI, which I'm not going to ask you if you're using AI yet, but you can tell me if you are. But it did remind me of the notion of fostering creativity and innovation in what you do. How do you establish that, and with or without an AI angle to it? How do you do that?
Yeah, no, we do. We have a number of sort of AI things, initiatives and programs at our organization. And what I learned is, and again, especially a lot of you, I think, are in new, sort of startup organizations or high-tech organizations where you're sort of at the forefront of what's going on. At a 153-year-old legacy news organization, this was something that we had to really build a culture for, and you had to build a culture and then the infrastructure. So we have twice a year this Hack Day. We call it like an Innovation Week with Hack Day, and we give people time and space to work with people in different departments to come up with and launch different ideas and initiatives, and we get the full range of different ideas. But then I also have a budget and a team that can take those ideas and launch them. And so whatever type of organization you are, if you say that you care about being innovative, you have to really put the infrastructure and the budget behind it in order for it to actually happen. And we've had really, really great and creative launches and internal innovation and sort of internal entrepreneurship because of that.
That sounds amazing. I wonder, did the term hack come from your time at MIT, or was that just an accidental
It came from
thing?
our tech department.
With maybe some MIT influence? I don't know. That's great. So if you could share one key lesson, the most important lesson or a key lesson that you've learned throughout your career, and as you mentioned, we have emerging leaders as well as experienced leaders, as well as people like me who are kind of in the second career. But what would be a piece of advice that you would give, especially for the emerging leaders in our room?
Something that has really helped me, and it took me a long time to get there, was that you really have to know yourself and make peace with yourself in different ways. Knowing what your values are and what's important to you is really, really important, because you can live somebody else's values very easily. And I grew up in, like I mentioned, my immigrant family, where there were sort of very big expectations and definitions of what success meant. And you can very easily do that and find whether it's your family expectations or society expectations or friends' expectations, you can be doing that. So if you take that time to figure out what's most important to you, is work a high priority? Is it your family? Is it having fun and scuba diving? Is it, what is it? Are you looking to have, a spotlight on you? Would you rather not have a spotlight? Like, sort of understanding what it is that you really want in life is really important for yourself, and that you're able to get to this place where you're doing work that makes your heart sing. I love what I do. I love working at the Boston Globe, and I feel so lucky because it touches on so many of my values of wanting to help Boston be a thriving city, and working with really smart people and doing things that are challenging and meaningful. It hits so many of my boxes that I feel this incredible joy, and it took me a while to find this particular career.
Yes.
And then the second part, as a leader, I took this fantastic course at another school in Cambridge, and called Leadership from the Inside Out. And it was a class that sort of forced you to look at the voices inside of you, what voices you were carrying with you. And so I carried, so part of it is like other people's expectations or other people that you're trying to get approval from, and sort of doing that excavation work internally to find out why you're doing the things that you're doing. And sometimes when we have these titles as women, as being the first woman, I'm the first woman to lead this 150-year-old institution, that sucks. Like that was sort of a backpack that I was carrying, because you're like, oh, you can't mess this up, because then no women will ever be able to do this again. And so I sort of made this piece where I was able to sort of take that backpack off, and so I wasn't making decisions based on that expectations. I wasn't making decisions based on my grandmother's hopes and dreams or any of these other voices that I was carrying with me. I was able to make decisions based on what's best for the organization that I was stewarding. So those are sort of two parts of knowing yourself and then making peace inside so that you can really lead and do what's best for the organization without having these other voices misdirect you.
I hear you saying something that reminds me of setting boundaries. I'm sure many of you have heard that term, but being able to set the boundaries too, as you find your passion, as you said, and then set the boundaries about what are you willing or not willing to carry with you in that. And I wondered, in thinking about the voices in the head, are some of those role models, and you actually wanted to carry the advice with you? What would be some of the things?
Them. You can keep them. Yeah, so I have a lot of role models, and this was a conversation I was having with my daughter Sienna this week, actually, where we were talking about who are some people you admire. And for me, it's not that there's one person that I'm like, okay, that's all of it, but I'll just sort of meet men or women, and I'll be like, oh, that's a really great quality that they have, and I really admire them for that reason. And I have some of my best friends are, I'll see something that they do, and I just sort of have this love and appreciation for them, and aspire to sort of take some of their habits and outlooks with me.
I like that theory a lot. I like to do that as well. I see people do something in a way that I admire. Maybe it's how they handle a difficult situation or how they show up, and I think that's a great thing to borrow as a best practice, right? So I'm glad to hear that. That I hadn't heard that before when people, because I interview students for MIT, right? And one of the questions we'll ask is role models. So we'll get the big role
Winston
models.
Churchill.
Yes, but I love your role model idea. That's awesome. And so you started to talk a little bit about your career and your family and your life and your passion. So everybody in the room, I know, is in the generation where we have a lot of demands on us, right? We've got our loved ones, our kids, our parents. We've got so many things and our careers to manage. So it's demanding. There's a lot of responsibilities, and I sense that you've carried all of that as well. And I'm sure that people would love to hear, what support systems or habits do you engage or use that help you to stay motivated, balanced, if that's possible, integrated at least, and bringing your whole self to work and to your home?
I don't really like the bringing your whole self to work thing.
Strike that.
There are some things that I'll see people bring, and I'll be like, I don't think that should be here. But I've learned to be a bit more, I think the most important thing we all have is our time and how we choose to spend it. And there are a lot of things that can sort of creep into your schedule. And as boring as it sounds, routines are something that are really relaxing to me. So I know what I'm doing and what's happening. And one routine that's been wonderful for me is Sunday night nachos with my girlfriends. They come over to my house every Sunday night, and we just gather for 2 hours, and we have nachos, and we chat, and it's just sort of been this lovely sort of touch point so I can stay connected with my friends. But for me, it means that I have prioritized and put space in my schedule for my friendships. And so it's not this sort of random or, are you free for dinner on this certain thing? We sort of all know that this is our routine. I have a routine with my kids in terms of like what we're doing on Friday night together. And I have sort of these other routines in terms of what we're doing. As much as I can control that, I do. And that sort of makes me relaxed because I know that I'm going to get that time. And I know I'm going to get that time in with my friends. I know I'm going to get that time in for the office. I know like specifically like which hours I'm in each place, and I'm consistent with that when I'm not traveling. Yes. And that's very relaxing to me. But to choose what those blocks are with intention.
Yes. Again, you may not use the term boundaries, but it reminds me of things I've heard about setting those boundaries or setting those guidelines for yourself to take care of yourself. And it's also the airline analogy I'm sure most of you have heard, where they talk to you on the airplane about put your mask on first before you try to help others. And I think what you've described reminds me of that as well, is be sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can then show up and be who you need to be in all parts of your life. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, because this is a conference of networking and community and connections, I wondered what strategies you would share with us I'm sure it's important in your work, and I'm expecting that you'll tell us that there's a lot of networking, but what would you say are one or two strategies that are effective that could be relevant for people here about the network and the power of it?
So this isn't a great question for me because I kind of think networking is bullshit. I don't really, I don't have a business card. I don't do it. What I do really believe in is having meaningful connections with people. I think that I'm one of 4 girls, and so I've grew up in a sorority house basically, but I've always sought the connection in time and space with women throughout my career. And one of the ways that I've done that is that I would host a group of women in my house once a month, not my group, but just sort of other women, and we would discuss a book, or we would discuss I would host a conversation like this, and we would sort of all do it together, and I still do that today, where I host roundtables of women leaders throughout the city in my office, and we'll welcome another woman when they come in, and for me, that's been a way of, I wouldn't consider it networking, but I would say staying connected and being and sharing space with a variety of women. So I'm very lucky because this has been something that I've been doing throughout my career, that I know a lot of kick-ass women in the area, and it's not because I've networked with them, it's because I've genuinely spent time with them. So I don't really have networking advice, but my perspective is that having real connections with people that you can call or email or ask a question is a really worthwhile investment.
I think it's great advice. I remember back to all my corporate days, 33 years at the one company, right? And it was scary to be told, go to the conference and network. And to your point, what I found was more interesting is what you're describing. It's the notion of, find out about the other person, find out what motivates them, what are they interested in, find the common ground, talk about it. Made more sense. And even to this day, working on corporate boards, if you go to a corporate board training session, they'll talk about your network. But reality is that it's authentic connection to people, not just go out and call 5 people and network with them, but really be authentic.
And hand out your business card. And
the way you describe it is lovely.
Great. Thank you. Oh.
So if you're, I think that's
great. Well, I would love to ask you some questions.
All right.
I love being a moderator, and so I'm going to turn the tables. And one of the things I'd like to talk about, Natalie, is when we went through your bio, there is so much that you are giving to MIT. You asked me what I was doing and why I thought it was important. But for you, how do people stay engaged with MIT in meaningful ways? I don't know if everybody has the same, commitment and capacity that you have. But how can the women in this room connect to MIT?
Well, for me, I think the story is the best example. My journey was not obvious. I spent the first 5 years after I graduated not being connected to MIT. I didn't really understand the value or the power of that. And I was busy, working really hard. But then I went to my 5-year reunion and got sucked into the fact that I loved the people at the reunion. They were so interesting. And I loved my company too, but it was the first time, it was the aha moment that, wow, we had this shared experience as undergrads, and people are so interesting. They're doing cool things. They want to have impact. And I think that's when I first started to pull that on board. So I became a class officer at that reunion and did that, each 5th year reunion. And over time, I ended up bringing my company into the picture. I thought, hey, we should be hiring more MIT people. So how do we do that? And then the Institute for Data Systems and Society was standing up. And I thought, well, my company should be part of that. How do we do that? So for me, it was sort of an accidental journey for the most part. Maybe the last 15 years have been more deliberate. When I served on the MIT Alumni Association board for the first time, that was more deliberate. But all along the way, I was involved in the Club of Washington, D.C., but I was also raising a family, and so it wasn't like I ever set out to do it. But what I would say to everybody here is, and you said it well, find your passion. What are the things that you care about? Are you starting businesses? Are you interested in the environment and climate? Are you interested in healthcare? So you have MIT HEALS, which is the Health and Life Sciences launch. Mythic, we talked about already, the Human Insight. We have the Climate Project. And then, of course, we have AI everywhere. And then today we learned a lot about entrepreneurship. So all I would say is follow your passions, talk to MIT staff, talk to Whitney, talk to her team, and find out some of the ways to get connected, because there's so many ways to be involved. And it's magical because it doesn't feel like work anymore.
Is that a brass rat?
It is.
What is your best brass rat encounter?
Oh my goodness. You mean in terms of where the rat has been, or?
No,
Because my rat has been to Galapagos.
we can discuss that after. But just in terms of somebody sort of like doing that power
Oh my
brass
gosh.
rat.
Well, it's not a happy story. It's a bit strange. I was traveling with my husband. He's developing concentrated solar power. We're traveling around the world. And a guy comes up to us and talks to my husband first. Then he looks at me, sees the rat, and he says, "Well, who did you take that from?" And I was really offended. And, my husband, being a nice guy and all, but he is on my side, but he says, "Oh, don't take it too personally." It's like, no, that was actually personal. So I guess it wasn't a great story, but on the upside, you do get people. There was somebody in a car next to me, and then we ended up at a stoplight, and he rolls his window down, and he says, "Did you go to MIT? I see your rat." So I guess there's been the good and the bad.
All right. Sounds like more good.
More good. Yeah, but that was a strange situation, that first one.
And then, how else? So how can people engage with MIT more? What else? What does MIT need from us? How can we be sort of better alumni?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I don't know how many of you know that there's an MIT Daily that you can subscribe to. And it's a really quick read in the morning. And every morning there's at least one of the 5 or 8 articles is really interesting. And I learn something new every time.
This is an email newsletter.
This is an email newsletter you can sign up for, MIT Daily.
So you're subscribing to your local newspaper, and you
and
are
MIT Daily.
subscribing to MIT Daily.
Absolutely.
All right, we're leaving you some tasks.
MIT definitely needs, you to know what they're doing. Be informed, learn how to connect. It's not lost on anybody here that we're also in a difficult time in our country for higher education. So I would be remiss not to say that MIT also needs your support in understanding what the value of MIT has been to our country, to the globe. Learn more so that you can talk to your local representatives and help them understand, because a lot of the people in Congress don't really understand what makes MIT special. And also MIT, where you can, if you're able to be involved philanthropically, MIT will need our support. I think things are going to get really tough, and we're going to need to support those things that we're most passionate about. So for me, it's energy, environment, sustainability, and we even formed a special interest group in that area, my husband and I did. So being able to get engaged in things you're passionate about, and if you can help philanthropically, those are some of the things that are important right now.
Great. Do you know the Beaver song?
I'm a beaver, you're a beaver, we're beavers all, and when we get together, we hear the beaver call. E to the U, D U, D X, E to the X, D U. I don't know, I probably have that one wrong,
job.
but it's close. The only reason that's funny. The only reason I know it is my husband's fraternity and rowing club, they get together, and the wife of one of the rowers, she makes us sing it when we get together. I was like, she has a little flashcard.
That's great. Well, thank you all for being here today. You showing up today is being part and staying connected to MIT and this incredible group of women. Stay connected, not network, but we have real connections with each other. And thank you to our leadership here for producing this fabulous event. It's really, really well done.
And thank you for being here with us. Please, a round of applause for Linda. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Adela back to the stage. Thank you all.
Wonderful conversation. Thank you, ladies. Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm very aware that I am standing between you and lots of wine, so we will make this short. Just a couple of quick points. I think because we actually covered so much today, it'll be nice to just hear like what were some of the themes and what did we actually learn. So just a couple of big points. And again, Linda and Natalie, thank you so much for that. I loved what Linda just shared, which is that MIT is a national and global treasure. I think that is so, exactly on the nose, because just looking at this room, yes, it's a national treasure and we are very aware of the name brand, but it's really the community and the people, and that's actually all of you, that makes it so incredible. So please just know that you are, invaluable, and everyone being here is certainly appreciated. And we also know that a lot of people have crossed the globe to be here, so thank you. We also just want to say a big thank you to the association and all the support that went in making this event so incredible. As you go downstairs, we're actually going to have tables out there if you haven't been able to visit. So Amida, as we heard, please make sure that you're signed up so you receive all the communication. Also, there's tables with the MIT Alumni Association, Sloan Executive Education, the MIT Federal Credit Union, MIT's Office of Professional Education, the Harvard Club of Boston, whose membership, by the way, is actually open to MIT alums, and also the MIT Press. And I also wanted to, AI is top of mind. I wanted to share a poem about today's event, which was created by ChatGPT, and a few prompts that I just put out. Okay, so here we go. I hope it's not terrible. From Ellen Richards' daring start to minds that shaped the world with heart. They broke the rules, they paved the way for those who rise and lead today. In labs and stars, in code and flight, they turn the dark to burning light. With hands that build and minds that soar, they open every locked up door. At MIT, their voices ring. In every field, their echoes sing. And at this conference, bold and bright, they stand as beacons in the night. So here's to those who dream and do, to those who dare, to those who knew, that strength is forged when hands entwine and change is built by hearts aligned. I don't think I can say anything else. I think that is it. Thank you all so much for being here. Please join us for the networking. We really want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak with all the different presenters today. Thank you.